The wind moved like an old woman sweeping the village, slow, steady, full of secrets. Red dust curled along the footpaths of Nansoni, a quiet village in northern Ghana, where life followed the rhythm of roosters, millet, and unspoken rules. It was mid-morning, and the sun had already begun to bite. The women were out, pounding fufu, braiding hair, hanging clothes. Among them was Amina, head down, hands moving, body still except for the baby tied to her back with a faded blue cloth. Atai. 27, Amina had become what the elders called every man's wish. She was soft-spoken, obedient, hard-working, and above all, fertile. 3 children in 5 years, 2 boys, 1 girl. She walked without making noise, spoke only when spoken to, and never raised her voice. She was a wife the ancestors would approve of, and to everyone in the village she was happy. She smiled in church, carried her children with grace, and never spoke ill of her husband. But Amina had learned, from the women before her, how to suffer quietly. Her silence was not peace. It was survival. Her husband, Kwame, was the man every father wanted for his daughter, tall, handsome, strong. He had once traveled to Tamale for trading work and returned with confidence that tasted foreign. He wore cologne that smelled like sharp citrus and smoke, bought a smartphone before most men in the village even had radios, and spoke English in a way that made people believe he had seen more of the world than he had. The village respected him. He led prayers at church, paid his dues at the elders' meetings, and brought home food every Friday without fail. But Amina knew a different man, the man behind closed doors, the man whose temper was quick and unpredictable, the man who looked through her like a wall when she spoke, the man who never asked how she was, who never held her when she bled between pregnancies, who only came close to her when the bed was cold. Still, she kept her head down and continued her duties. She had been trained well, to endure, to serve, to never shame her father's name. But the day everything shifted began like any other. Amina had gone to fetch water from the borehole just after dawn, the baby asleep on her back, the other 2 still wrapped in dreams. Kwame had left early, claiming he was going to the next village to buy spare parts for the motorbike. Amina didn't question it. She never did. But as she swept their one-room home, the handle of the broom brushed something under the bed. She knelt, thinking it was one of the children's toys, but what her hand pulled out was a slim black phone, different from the one Kwame usually carried. It was old, scratched at the corners, and had no case. Her hands shook slightly as she held it. She stood up slowly, her mind refusing to jump to conclusions. It was probably just an old phone. Maybe one of his friends had left it. Maybe he was hiding it for someone. But when she pressed the button and the screen flickered to life, the truth waited like a knife. The messages came first. They were short, sweet, sometimes cruel in their playfulness. I miss your mouth. Last night was fire. She'll never know. You know she's too slow. Some had pictures, selfies taken under mosquito nets, dresses sliding off shoulders, the kind of photos Amina had never imagined her cousin sending to anyone. Yes, her cousin, Miriam, the same girl, who had braided Amina's hair before her wedding. The same cousin who stayed with her during her 3rd pregnancy. The same cousin who had told her, "You're lucky you got Kwame. I wish I had a man like that." Amina sat down on the floor. The baby stirred on her back. Her breath was steady, but her world was not. The walls of the small room seemed to bend inward, as if trying to squeeze the air out of her. She looked at the screen again. The messages went back months, maybe longer. One of them even mentioned a trip. Miriam had visited Tamale with Kwame under the lie of seeing an uncle. Amina's mind traced every word, every smile, every moment shared between them, and now made sickening sense. But Amina did not cry. The tears gathered, yes, but they did not fall. Instead, she stood up slowly, placed the phone back where she had found it, and carried on with her chores. The baby woke and reached for her breast. She fed him in silence, her thoughts turning like slow gears inside her. That night, when Kwame returned, she served him his dinner as usual. She did not speak more than needed. She smiled when expected. And when he entered the room and fell asleep snoring, she lay beside him awake, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. By morning, she had made her decision. She did not scream. She did not fight. She did not go to the elders or call Miriam to confront her. Instead, she began to pack. Slowly. Quietly. She folded her wrappers, counted the children's clothes, packed their school books, and gathered her personal belongings into a green plastic bag. When she was done, she opened a small wooden box where Kwame had once placed the money for her bride price. She still remembered the day, the smell of cola nuts, the laughter of uncles, the proud smile of her father. 200 Ghana cedis. A modest sum, but symbolic. That money had made her a wife. That money had made her his. Now, she placed the same amount, 200 cedis, on the center of their bed. Not a word, just the money, and then she left. With her children on her sides and her dignity in both hands, she walked away from the Zaa, home she had built, the man she had endured, and the lie she had lived. Behind her, the wind rose again, lifting the dust into small storms, as if the earth itself was startled by her silence. The village of Nansoni had seen many strange things: goats born with 2 heads, children who spoke too early, rains that refused to fall for months, but nothing had shaken it like Amina's quiet exit. Word spread not through drums or messengers, but mouths, dry, excited, horrified. Women at the borehole paused in mid-lift, buckets teetering on heads. Men under the neem tree stopped arguing over politics. Children heard the whispers and asked their mothers, "Why did Ma Amina leave?" "She left money." "Exact," said one woman. "Bride price. Folded under a stone. No crying, no noise. Just gone," said another. "Alone?" someone asked. "No, she took the children. All 3. The elders gathered under the palaver tree by noon, their walking sticks planted in the ground like questions. Elder Bawa, the oldest among them, removed his cap, scratched his white hair, and stared into the dust. "This thing," he muttered. "This thing is heavy." Kwame came running later that day. His shirt was half-buttoned, his breath ragged, and his face, red not from sun but from shame. He hadn't noticed the money until midday. At first, he thought Amina had gone to her aunt's. When he found the empty box, the quiet room, and the folded cedis under the wrapper, he stood frozen. For almost 10 minutes, the children's clothes were gone, her slippers missing. Her scent still hung in the air like a goodbye. He snatched the phone and scrolled. Frantically. Desperately. Miriam hadn't answered his calls in 2 days. He threw the phone across the room, cursed loudly, and stepped into his sandals. He would find her. He would bring her back. Not because he loved her. He didn't. Not truly. But because she had embarrassed him, in front of the whole village. She had made him the man whose wife returned his bride price. And in their world, that meant one thing: you were not man enough to keep a woman. He found her by accident. She had walked several kilometers, past rocky footpaths and sun-baked farmland, until she reached the edge of Whale, a larger market town with noise, movement, and anonymity. There, she stayed with a distant aunt who barely asked questions. She slept on a straw mat beside her children, cooking small meals and waking up early to pound she-nuts into butter. It was hard, manual work, but it was hers. Every jar she filled felt like reclaiming a part of herself. She sold them on a small mat by the roadside, smiling politely, counting coins carefully. Kwame found her on the fourth day. He didn't greet her. He didn't ask about the children. He stood there, arms stiff, watching her arrange her shea butter into neat pyramids. Her hands were coated in the oil, shining, confident, sure. "So this is where you are?" he asked. His voice was loud enough for passers-by to hear. Amina didn't flinch. She didn't even look up. "Yes. You think you can just walk out? Like a thief?" She turned slowly now, her face calm, voice low. "I left what you paid for me. You are not owed more." Kwame laughed harshly. "You embarrass me, Amina. In front of my people. You shame me." "You shamed yourself," she replied. "I just refuse to carry it with you." His eyes darted around, noticing the small crowd forming. A few women had stopped to listen. A young boy selling bananas tilted his head, curious. The shame burned hotter now, like dry leaves in a flame. He stepped forward, close enough to grab her wrist, but she didn't move. She stood tall, oil glistening on her hands, children behind her watching with wide, uncertain eyes. "You think because you're selling shea butter you're free?" he hissed. "No," she said. "I am free because I stopped pretending." There was no fight, no slap, no screaming, just silence. Kwame turned and walked away, his steps uncertain, swallowed by the noise of the market. He had no words left, no power in that moment. Just a reputation unraveling, thread by thread. That evening, Amina sat beneath a tamarind tree behind her aunt's home. The children were asleep beside her. The sky above was dark but scattered with stars. She breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she felt no weight on her chest. No fear about who she was supposed to be, only the steady beat of who she was becoming. Later that night, her aunt joined her with a calabash of warm millet porridge. She sat down quietly, handed her the bowl, and spoke only once. "You were not wrong," she said. "But the world will try to tell you that you were." Amina nodded, sipping slowly. "I know," she whispered. "But I'm done listening to the world." The next day, she returned to the market with more jars. The customers came, mothers, grandmothers, young women with questions in their eyes. One of them, a girl barely 20, asked softly, "Is it true you gave the bride price back?" Amina smiled. "Yes." The girl looked down, then whispered, "You're brave." Amina shook her head. "No, I was just tired of forgetting my worth." 3 weeks passed, and the dust of gossip began to settle, on the outside at least. Amina had become a quiet legend among women and a thorn among men. In hushed tones, some praised her strength. Others shook their heads and muttered that the world was changing too fast. But deep down, everyone felt it. Something ancient had cracked. Meanwhile, in Nansoni, Kwame's world was not just unraveling, it was rotting. At first, he held his chin high, pretending he didn't care. He told his friends she would come crawling back, that she was just having a phase. He sat under the neem tree with the other men and laughed too loudly. But the truth was eating him alive from the inside, and it showed. His clothes no longer matched. He forgot to shave. He stopped going to church. Worst of all, Miriam had vanished. After Amina left, Miriam's mother had stormed into the compound, her slippers slapping the earth like gunfire. She held the same hidden phone in her hand, now dead and scratched. But still evidence of betrayal. She threw it at Kwame's chest and screamed so loud a rooster dropped dead in fright. "You made a fool of my daughter," she said. "You made a fool of your wife. You made a fool of us all." Kwame said nothing. He couldn't. The elders summoned him days later. Elder Bawa removed his glasses and stared into him. "You've broken the covenant," the old man said. Kwame blinked. "She left." "No," the elder replied. "She left after it was broken." They gave him a warning, then silence. But what truly crushed Kwame was not the elders, nor the gossip, nor even Amina's absence. It was what he learned one heavy afternoon when he went to Miriam's house, desperate, shaking, needing to make sense of her disappearance. Miriam's father met him at the gate. "She's gone," he said without opening it. "Gone where?" The man's eyes did not blink. "To the city, Accra. She's carrying your shame." Kwame swallowed. "What do you mean?" There was a pause, then a sentence so soft it landed like thunder. "She was pregnant." Kwame stumbled back. "No, she told me she was fine. She never said. She didn't want the child, but she was already 3 months in. She didn't want a future like your wife's. So she left." The gate closed. That night, Kwame did not sleep. He sat in the dark, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the crack in the wall where Amina's shadow used to rest when she lit the lamp. For the first time, he saw clearly, not just his mistakes, but the weight of his cowardice. He hadn't just betrayed a marriage. He had torn apart 2 women from the same blood, buried a seed, and left no legacy but sorrow. And in the stillness, another truth surfaced. One he had buried so deep, it took losing everything to remember. Amina was not the first to carry his shame. Years ago, when they were newly married, Amina had gone silent for days. He remembered her staring at the wall, hands trembling, refusing food. It was after the second child. He had assumed it was stress, or maybe rebellion. He shouted at her to snap out of it. Later, she bled for 3 days. She said nothing. He never asked, but now he knew. She had known. Or maybe suspected. That his warmth was not hers alone. That his touch had become divided. That his love was too thin to stretch over loyalty. And still, she stayed. Until the moment she chose to leave, not out of rage, but out of realization. The next morning, he traveled again. Not to Accra, not to chase Miriam, but back to the roadside market outside Whale Whale. He didn't go to fight. He didn't even know what he would say. He just needed to see her. She was there, wearing a simple wrapper, her head wrapped in white cloth. She was speaking to an older woman, laughing softly, her hand resting on her youngest child's head. She looked free. Kwame stood at a distance, unsure. His mouth opened, then closed. For once, there were no words to hide behind, only guilt. Amina saw him, their eyes locked. The space between them pulsed with things unsaid. Nights lost, trust broken, years that could not be returned. She did not walk toward him. She did not nod. She did not scowl. She simply turned back to the customer, lifted a jar of shea butter, and said gently, "This one is best for cracked skin." Kwame felt something collapse inside him. Not anger, not pride. Just a quiet knowing. He turned and left. As he walked away, the world around him felt smaller. But behind him, Amina's world was growing. It was harvest season now. The rains had come and gone, and the land outside Whale Whale had turned gold with maize and firewood smoke. Life moved on, as it always did. But something in the wind had changed. It no longer whispered secrets. It carried stories. And everywhere in the northern markets, between piles of mangoes and woven baskets, one name kept rising. Amina. She no longer sat by the roadside. Her stall had moved to the heart of the Whale Whale market, beneath the shade of a tall shade tree. She sold butter in glass jars now, not recycled tins. Her labels were handwritten with care. Nafache, for skin, for soul. The women came in groups, young, old, bruised, curious. Some came for the butter. Others came to hear her voice. She never spoke of Kwame, never retold the scandal. But her silence said more than words ever could. When women asked how she managed, she simply smiled and said, "God gave me hands. I use them." Every market day, her children helped. The boys arranged jars, carried boxes. The little girl sat close to her mother, watching every move, as if learning more than business. And then one day, something unexpected happened. A familiar voice called from behind her stall. "Amina?" She turned. It was Elder Bawa, his walking. Stick worn, but his eyes still sharp. He looked at her not with judgment, but with a deep, unsettled curiosity. He had heard the stories. He had heard the gossip. But now he stood before her, seeing the truth with his own eyes. He sat down slowly, waving away her attempt to bring him water. "I came," he said, "to see for myself. They said you're doing well." "I'm working," she answered. "That's all." He nodded. "And the children?" "They are learning, growing, sleeping peacefully." The elder was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, his voice low. "Do you know what they say in the village now?" Amina said nothing. "They say you have cursed your womanhood, that you disrespected your marriage, that no woman should return a bride price." Amina looked him in the eyes. "They are wrong. I did not return myself. I returned what was paid for me. The rest, I kept." He stared at her, this woman, once too quiet to speak, now too firm to shake. "You understand what you've done?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I gave back the price so I could keep the value." The old man sat back, breathing deeply. The wind picked up, rustling the she leaves above them. A small piece of paper blew past, a label from one of her jars. He watched it drift into the market crowd, and then, to her surprise, the elder stood. "I don't agree with you," he said. "But I understand you now." She nodded. That was enough. He turned to go, but stopped. "Just one thing," he said. "You changed something, in the minds of our daughters." Then he walked away. That night, as the market emptied and the last customers faded into dust and distance, Amina packed her goods carefully. Her children were tired, their eyes heavy, their bodies wrapped in the scent of shea and sun. She held them close as they walked back to the small room they now called home. Inside, it was quiet. No shouting, no slammed doors. Just the sound of breathing, gentle and real. She lit a small lamp, sat on the mat, and opened her notebook. She wrote ideas for next week. New scents, better containers, possible expansion to tamale. The words came easily now. Her dreams had been waiting all along. A knock came at the door. She froze for a moment, then stood. When she opened it, there stood Miriam, eyes hollow, belly no longer swollen, hands holding a wrapped bundle. "I heard you're selling peace," Miriam said. Amina didn't answer. She looked at the bundle in her cousin's hands. "It's not what you think," Miriam whispered. "I lost it." Amina reached out, took the bundle, and led her inside. They didn't speak that night. They sat side by side, two women broken, and still whole, surrounded by the quiet power of forgiveness. Days passed, weeks became months, and one bright morning, a journalist from Accra came to the market with a camera and questions. He had heard of a woman who left her marriage without noise, who built a business from butter and ashes, who taught girls that silence is not always submission, and that strength doesn't always scream. He asked to take her picture. She agreed. He asked what name to write under it. She smiled. "Just say, a woman who remembered her worth." And that's how the story spread, not just through whispers or gossip, but through headlines, posters, speeches. Her image traveled beyond Nansoni, beyond Whale, beyond the north. Her face, calm, proud, bare, became a symbol not of rebellion, but of returning to oneself. And though many still debated her choices, No one could deny her peace. She had given the bride price back, but she had taken her value with her.